time now is 7 o'clock. I'll call the Tuesday, March the 26th meeting of the Millcreek Township Board of Supervisors to order. If you would please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. As a reminder, these meetings are recorded and are broadcast on channel 1024 on the Spectrum network, and also available on YouTube. The recordings of these, the video and audio, and there's also the closed captioning service is available at both of them. Just to do that as a reminder, to let everybody know, for those who may be hearing impaired, it is available to be seen that way. Moving on to item number 3, we have public comment on agenda items other than development or rezoning applications. Do we have any public comment on agenda items that are not zoning or development applications? Being none, we'll move on to item number 4, which is the approval of our minutes from our prior meeting. Do we have any questions, comments, corrections, anything from the board? Being none, I'll call for a motion on that to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
And I also vote yes. And next item is number 5, the approval of the bills for this last cycle. Any questions or comments? Being none, I'll call for a motion on that.
Make a motion to approve paying our bills.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Item number 6, capital budget amendment requests. I'll refer this over to Mark Shahesky, our treasurer.
Okay, the first one is with respect to the fuel pumping system for the township. The project itself was approved initially last fall, but they couldn't start construction right away because it was wintertime. When they did finally get started, they found that they needed some extra pieces of equipment here and there because of corrosion and other DEP issues. So initially the project was approved for $56,440.94. With the changes required for technology, the fobs, and having to go wireless as opposed to running wires underground and things like that. The project now is expected to cost $84,761. In addition, there's about $6,000 worth of concrete work that needs to be done. The total amount that's short at this point is $34,320.06. When we previously approved the project, there was $12,000 roughly in insurance proceeds. Last summer, somebody pulled away without putting the hose back and kind of messed the pumps up. So we got a partial for that, and then we'll get we had a depreciated amount because we're spending new money to replace them. We'll get the full value that was on the books. So that will come to a total of roughly $12,000. So that is being applied to the 34. In addition, there was roughly $12,000 in excess from the purchase of the lowboy trailer. It was in the budget for 94, and it cost 82. So we'll be using that. Additionally, there were 2 other items in the capital budget that won't be spent: the weather stations update and the EMA county radio system tie-in. That's another $12,100. So that, by using those items to cover the excess cost of the project, there's still a reserved amount of just under $1,800.
Okay. Any questions, comments from the board? If not, I'll call for a motion on that action. That would be on the gasoline pump.
I move to approve the capital budget amendment for the gasoline pumps.
Okay, do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
And Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay,
Okay, next I want to jump to, which is actually the third item, because this is an item that we approved at the last meeting, was the refuse truck for the Parks Department. The amount that, they made a small change, and it changed the price of the project. The budget initially was $96,305. With the changes, it's now $93,837, leaving a excess to reserve of $2,468. It was $3,200 before, so we're looking at an $800 change. It was something that had to do with, I think, handling the bins at the in the parks,
okay.
and this is going to make it easier for that, and that's the reason for the change.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, I'll call for a motion on this.
I'll move to approve the amendment to the capital budget.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay,
And
Mr. Oh, I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Greb, it's, unless the agenda was updated, I don't believe it's on the agenda. Do you want to ask for
Is
public
that on?
comment?
Okay, I don't know if I have the up-to-date agenda here. I will ask for public comment since this was not on the agenda. Any public comment? Being none, we'll move on. Okay. Now, do I hear a motion? I heard a motion, and then
Call
a
for the vote.
second. Okay, we'll call for the vote on that there. Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay.
Okay, and the final item is relative to finding some startup funding for the Golf and Learning Center. I will say that the document that's in front of you is going to have to be amended. The Chestnut Pool vacuum is not, the savings there is not the $3,500. I wasn't aware of that at that time, so I will have to amend that. The second line item is the reserve from the refuse truck, which we just approved, and then using $47,867 from the replacement of Truck 71 from the Parks Department. And then additionally taking, or actually using $3,000 of the miscellaneous minor equipment budget and the $1,000 the general expense budget. That leaves just under $54,000 for startup costs for the Golf and Learning Center. Those will all be expense items as opposed to capital items.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the board members? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve that capital budget amendment.
Okay, do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes on it. Okay. Item number 7, bids and quotations. There's several of them from Public Works, so I'll refer this right over to Gary Snyder, our Department of Public Works Director.
Gentlemen,
Item number 1, rooftop unit.
we're seeking permission to replace rooftop unit number RTU3. This is the last major HVAC unit on the roof that controls the climate of the township building and is part of our 5-year plan for upgrades to the building. We'd like to purchase the unit from Johnson Controls for the cost of $68,985 under the CoStar's contract 008-145. This is a budgeted item and came in at $11,000 under budget.
Okay, well, that's good.
Just as a point of order, they're going to use that excess for the next item, so we
Okay.
should actually have done a capital budget amendment. I did discuss this with Gary and Jerry, and I'm aware of it, but we didn't get
Okay.
together to actually put together the amendment.
Okay, it can be, that action can be held off to our next meeting? Is
Yes.
that correct? Okay. Okay, but we can approve the purchase of this or take action on it then is. Okay. Gary, this is the original rooftop unit for the building from when
Yes,
this was
the unit's
remodeled and,
21 years old.
yeah, 21 years old. So it's lived its life, and,
Yes.
you know, this is the last of the three that's being replaced then, so. Questions, comments from the board? Being none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the replacement of the rooftop unit for
Okay.
$68,985.
Okay, is there a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, next item, Mr. Snyder, rooftop unit, the balancing of rooftop unit number 2.
Yes, the unit that we put in the first year was never balanced. Balancing it, we have a company come in and they go around to each vent. Over a period of years, as the performance starts to lag on these machines, we have to go out of set points. They're in the computer system.
Yeah.
And by testing these, we'll bring that back into compliance. And with the more efficient units that we put up on top. For some reason, it wasn't put in the original contract. We didn't know anything about it until last year when we had the issue with
Okay,
the second rooftop unit.
okay.
So this would be through Johnson Control also.
Okay.
Balance the rooftop unit, RTU 2, at the cost of $4,410 under CoStar's contract 008-145.
Okay. Questions or comments from the board? Being none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve that purchase.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Next item, preventative HVAC maintenance contract. Mr. Snyder.
Yes, we are seeking permission to enter a 3-year maintenance contract with Johnson Control. CoStar's contract number is 008-145 for all our rooftop HVAC units. The cost for the first year is $16,433. The second year it increases to $17,226, and the last year it increases to $18,130. Mr. Berger tells me that Johnson Control has had the contract for several years and is very happy with the service. The control software is also proprietary to Johnson Control, so that kind of makes it kind of tough to look outside of that company, but we have been had very success with Johnson Control as far as the maintenance side and all that. So it would be my recommendation to enter that 3-year maintenance contract with Johnson Control under the CoStar's contract 008-145.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the board? Okay, being none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the maintenance contract with Johnson Controls.
Okay, do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, next item is the request for a proposal for the financing of the street sweeper and garbage truck. Mr. Zaheski.
Yeah, we advertised for bank financing for the 2 items that were approved at the previous meetings, the refuse truck and the street sweeper. Those bids are due on April the 12th at 3 p.m. And hopefully we'll be able to take some action at the, I don't know, whatever, the last night meeting of April. I'm not even sure what the day is.
23rd.
Yep.
So it's in process.
Okay. Okay, any questions? We need to take an action on that, I believe, right? No? No? Okay. Okay, moving on to our next item, the sale of the 1994 dump truck, Public Works Department. Gary.
The Fleet Maintenance Department is seeking permission to sell a 1994 white GMC dump truck, VIN number 4043, to David M.C. For the price of $1,999. This vehicle has been advertised in the past with no interest on it, and the price is under the requirement for advertising.
Okay, questions or comments? Is to approve the sale of that vehicle. We're going to sell it to that individual at that price. Any questions, comments? I'll call for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the sale of the white GMC dump truck to David M.C.
Okay, do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, the next item is a mower purchase from the Parks and Recreation Department. This comes from Ashley Marsteller, Director of Parks and Recreation. The Parks Department is requesting to purchase an Exmark 96-inch rear discharge zero-turn mower from state contracted vendor Miller Brothers for a price of $32,872.50. This mower was included in the department's capital budget for this year and is coming under budget by $5,802.50. It is her recommendation to approve the budgeted purchase from Exmark zero-turn mower under state contract 44000200097 from Miller Brothers. I can put that in the form of a motion. I'll make the motion. I hear a second on that.
I'll second it.
Okay. Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next item is a pool sweeper request from the Parks Department. It's come once again from Ashley Marsteller, Director. She is requesting the purchase of a Dolphin Wave 100 automatic pool cleaner from CoStar contracted vendor B&R Pools. The CoStar contract 014-130 for the amount of $3,400. This is a budgeted expense in the Parks capital budget and is coming $100 under budget. The pool vacuum is essential when maintaining proper health and safety requirements for public swimming pools, as it maintains clean water and conditions allowing us to pass our health inspections, and of course it is used daily. It is her recommendation to approve that, and I will put that in the form of a motion. Do I hear a second on that?
I'll second that.
Okay, Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay. Software request from the IT department. Mark? Or send it back?
Yes, we have had ongoing issues with virus attacks, and despite the best efforts of our IT crew between the software we had currently been using and some software provided by VNet, we weren't able to eradicate the virus. It was the recommendation of VNet to try WebRoot software, so Chris and John did, and it seemed it has been effective thus far. In order to purchase sufficient licenses for all our machines, because they're individual user licenses, the cost is $22,370. That'll be split up amongst the police and admin based on the number of computers, and it will come out of the supplies budget.
Okay. Questions, comments from the board?
Mark, what did you say the total was?
Looks like $2,370.
Okay, that's what I have. Okay.
Yeah, I
Thank
stumbled over it first. but-
Okay.
Yeah.
Didn't know if you added another digit.
Okay. Okay. Call for a motion on that?
I'll make a motion to approve that purchase of the updated software for virus control.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, next item is the Millcreek Golf and Learning Center equipment lease, and I'm going to refer this over to Solicitor Mark Shaw.
Sure, as part of the reopening of the Golf and Learning Center, various pieces of equipment are necessary to maintain the golf course, which would include one 2500B triplex mower green, which mows the greens. It was a price of $14,500. The proposal is to have it enter into a 48-month lease with 24 payments. The amount would be $665.12 per payment. The second piece of equipment is a 2500E triplex mower, which is used for the tees. at a price of $7,500, and that monthly payment would be $344.03. The third piece of equipment is an 8,000E fairway mower at $14,000, and that is, would have a monthly payment of $642.18. The fourth piece of equipment is a Z930M Z-turn rotary mower at a price of $6,300, at a monthly payment of $288.98. And the last piece of equipment is a TX turf gator at a price of $5,600, with a monthly payment of $256.87. It's my understanding that these would be individual leases for each piece of equipment, and that none of this equipment is interrelated or necessary for the other equipment to operate. Each piece falls below the bidding requirement of $20,600, and in addition are unique pieces of equipment that are difficult to locate, and there are very few vendors in the region. Two of the items exceed the $11,100 limit, requiring 3 telephonic quotes. It's my understanding that efforts were made to contact 4 potential vendors, and that the selected vendor was the only one that had all of the pieces of equipment that were necessary and had the lowest price for each piece. In fact, 2 of the vendors that were contacted referred us to the vendor that we're going with. So there aren't a whole lot of golf equipment vendors in the region. In addition, the lease terms are such that you pay 6 months essentially during the golf season, and then you don't pay for the 6 months in the off season. It can be terminated at any time. So if, for instance, another arrangement or a different arrangement is made for the golf course, we can either assign the lease to the entity who will be maintaining it, or simply terminate the lease if they don't need the equipment. So we would recommend that the purchase of this equipment be approved. It is used equipment. The vendor ensures that it operates and is operable when we receive it, and they sharpen all the blades and so forth, so it's ready to go when it's received. And it is important to get these ordered so that they'll be ready for the golf course when maintenance requirements are needed.
Okay. Questions or comments among the board here? Okay, being none, I'll tell you what, I'll make the motion on this to approve those lease purchases as listed here, as Mark explained. I'll make that motion. Do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
How about yes?
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay. Next item is change order number 2 for the Wolf Run Drive Emergency Storm Sewer Repair. Matt Waldinger.
Thank you. Good evening. The board has previously approved a contract and 1 change order for the Wolf Run Drive Emergency Storm Sewer Repair Project. Those 2 items so far have totaled $259,974.53. This spring, it was noticed that the hillside, the repair area had started to slough. The township has been in contact with CEC, which is the engineer that we contracted to design and inspect the construction as it was done. It was determined that in order to find out the cause, or attempt to find out the cause, that the existing erosion control mat that's over the site needs to be peeled back and removed. It was also suggested that a 12-inch fabric silt sock be placed at the top of the hill in case overland erosion was coming off the hill, or overland water was coming off the hill and causing erosion. We still have Shivers Construction under contract because they have not finished the required seeding of that hillside. So we've gotten a price from Shivers to do these items, the silt sock and peel back the erosion mat for the investigation. The price from them is $4,725. That would be the amount of change order number 2, bringing the total cost of the project to date to $264,699.
Okay.
If I may add just two things. One of the other reasons to remove the matting is to see what the extent of the erosion is. It's hard to tell where the patches of erosion may be. There do appear to be some areas where the matting is, but again, it's hard to tell. So it'll also help determine what the extent of this occurring is. And It does appear that in addition to surface water, there may be some groundwater impacts that weren't seen during construction that may be impacting this material. So the engineer is looking at it and hoping to come up with a plan how to address those issues. The one area that we did see some significant erosion also happens to be the area where the new material met the old material. It's kind of a natural weak point, and there may be some discussion as to ways to address that weak point differently.
Okay. Questions or comments among the board? Being none, I'll entertain a motion for that change order number 2, I'm sorry.
I'll make a motion to approve change order number 2 for Wolf Run.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, our next item is item number 8, which is a public hearing, intermunicipal liquor license transfer for the Country Fair at 2301 Peninsula Drive. And I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Shaw, our solicitor.
Sure.
to
And
handle
Millcreek
that.
Township received a request from Country Fair to approve the transfer of a liquor license from Northeast Borough to Millcreek Township, specifically to the Country Fair location at 2301 Peninsula Drive. The type of license to be transferred is known as an eating place liquor license, which allows for only the sale of beer and similar type products, but not the sale of liquor or wine. The hearing for this request has been properly advertised. Under Pennsylvania law, the municipality is required to have, or I should say, it requires municipal approval for these types of licenses to be transferred, and it requires that the township hold a public hearing for the purpose of receiving comments and recommendations regarding the transfer. And then following that hearing, the supervisors must render their decision, either approving or disapproving that request, and that must be done within 45 days of receiving the request. We are within that time period, and I would turn it back to you, Mr. Chairman, to hold that hearing.
Okay. We'll open that hearing now at this time and wish to hear from the applicant or a representative of the applicant. If you would, sir, please come forward.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisors, I am Paul Rank, and I am both a resident of Millcreek and I'm in charge of the Country Fair operation.
Okay.
I think, as you are well aware, over the last 10 years, the whole liquor laws and changing of moving restaurants changed when Wegmans solicited and with the board and also through court cases, our legislature decided you could have a store within a store. We have actively been pursuing that throughout our whole working region, have grocery stores and have convenience stores. It's been basically a request of consumers on how things are done, what they want, how they can get things. With this license, we're requesting a license to have an intermunicipal transfer from the borough of Northeast here to the township of Millcreek. With that, there are requirements that we have to meet and how we go about it. I'd certainly like to show what we plan to do. Again, that would be a zoning request in order to get those, but I'd like to go through it how we meet the state requirements and our concerns to meet the spirit of the law as we have it now, and also to serve the public, the people in Millcreek who desire this to happen. When you look at this, gentlemen, this is a drawing of our location, interior layout of our location on 23rd and Peninsula Drive. We are requesting a transfer of a restaurant license. In order to transfer a restaurant license, we have to be in compliance with that in a whole series, because we are doing, as the state has approved, the courts have approved, a business within a business. We're putting a restaurant within a convenience store, similar to which I know has happened here in a number of places in Millcreek, but really started out with Wegmans, beginning that whole process early in the state. It requires us to put 30 seats in. The seats are very highly regulated from the size they go. We would look to put in a bar by the window that we have. We would also put in additional seats and tables here and along to have handicapped. We have to develop a place where we can sell beer, and with beer we could then later apply for a wine license, which is typically granted with that. We, as a company that started here in this county 56 years ago, believe very much in local and we believe in fresh. Those are two things, so we like to support local wineries, we support local breweries. and having their products along with everything else. We will have an area which will have bollards which will demarc where it is. Within the bollards, we can sell items that have consumption that are restaurant items. For instance, a family pack of potato chips cannot be sold in that area. It has to be moved outside of that area. We have to develop an individual register where we cannot sell gasoline, but where we can sell those items. What we do, we require a driver's license from the state. In order for that register to work, the driver's license has to be put through. We have cameras on everybody that's in the location so that we can see what goes on. With these doors that we have on the coolers, they have locks. So when we come to the hours that we aren't going to operate those, or we can't do it, all the doors are locked where the various alcoholic beverage are, so they cannot be secured by people. We're limited by state law as far as what we can do as far as a restaurant license. The most that can be bought is 192 ounces. If we were to get a wine license, the most that can be purchased is 3 liters of wine. And that's very defined. It can be whatever the mixture is, it has to be that type of amount. We believe very much, and all the way through, we have training. We have ramp training, which is an alcohol training. We have that takes place for all of our employees on a monthly basis. It's a computerized program. Everyone has to be licensed by the state in order to sell everything. If you sell anything outside, it's immediate termination with no excuses. We now operate 14 of these locations. We have an equal amount in the various licensing process. We're finding it's very well accepted by customers. Yes, I'm excused. Any comment? I just saw a couple of you sort of look like you were nodding off on me, or you had a comment on it. Is there any, those are what we believe very much in having on what goes on. But it's something we will do. We will spend a significant amount of money remodeling the locations. We have the 2 restrooms. We'll go through the various handicap things that are required as we do alterations for buildings to bring them up to date and code in the process.
Okay.
We very much like to have your approval. We are happy to be an active member here in the community and would like to continue to do that.
Any questions among the board here first? Anybody? John, Jim? Anything that you may have? Just for, if not, I have just a clarification. You're not adding on to the building, is that correct?
No, very well taken. The question was adding on to the building or not. We are taking the items we have, which have been traditionally grocery items here, moving them somewhat back. We make this the licensed area. The licensed area is where we would sell the alcohol and individual products. Now, if you were to drink alcohol in our location, we require that you buy a food item that's prepared fresh in the location at the time of consumption. And we limit that consumption to 40 ounces. No wine can be consumed in the building, only beer can be consumed in the building. But this would really work with this area on this location. Other locations where we've gone and we have more ability, we would do a bump out to try to put some seating in.
Isn't it, this is kind of like the seating arrangement at the Zook and Zimmerly location? Because they're selling alcoholic beverages there and they have seating in there too. Okay.
That's a very good example, yes.
Okay. Just for clarification, once again, I needed my own mind here, pardon me. If a person, an adult, goes in and buys an alcoholic beverage and buys something that is prepared there on site, and I think that's what you said, has to be prepared as a restaurant, and goes to sit down, what is there, are children allowed, say a kid wants to go buy a sandwich and go sit down in that same area? I mean, what do we got?
It's a very excellent question you have, and it's the same question that I think we have with Applebee's.
Okay.
Or any different restaurant
Understand.
we would have. We would
Okay.
allow that person, the child, to have it. Consumption of that child is definitely a no-no.
Oh, yeah.
But the person of legal age can purchase that. This is a restaurant license we're purchasing.
Okay.
So we operate under the same edicts that a restaurant license does in the state.
Okay, just clarification, okay. Okay. Questions from the board? Okay, for right now. Okay, anybody from the public who wishes to speak in regard to this matter, please come forward. You will have to identify yourself for the record. That's first call for any public comment. Second call for any public comment. Being done, we'll note that for the record, there is no comment from the public. Okay. we're all satisfied with everything that has been presented. Call for a motion.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, just for the record, indicate that the hearing is now closed.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, yes. It is now closed. Okay. And we're in reference to, we move it on to resolution number 9. Is that correct, there, Mr. Shaw?
Yes, it's Resolution 2019 R18.
Okay. In reference to that resolution, 2019 R18, it's the resolution of Millcreek Township, Erie, to, in the Commonwealth of PA, approving the intermunicipal transfer of Pennsylvania Eating Place Retail Dispenser Liquor License number E1413 into the Township of Millcreek from Northeast Borough to Country Fair located at 2301 Peninsula Drive. That is the action at hand. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2019-R-18.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay. Thank you. Moving on, item number 10, a public hearing on land development and subdivision plans. James Allen and Agnes C. Garris for a small subdivision plan to show the creation of one new lot measuring 96 by 135 from tax parcel 23-122-8 that has become an integral part of tax parcel 23-122-9 located along the west line of Garlock Drive and in north of Westlake Road in Track 282. Mr. Waldinger.
Thank you. At their regular meeting of Tuesday, March 5th, 2019, the Millcreek Township Planning Commission recommended approval of this subdivision with the following requirements: that the lot to be created become an integral part of the neighboring parcel, Erie County Tax Parcel 33-122-9, that they provide the existing building dimensions on the Mylar, and that the shed that exists on the residue property be moved a minimum of 7 feet from the new property line or removed. And just to clarify that item, that last item for you, Mr. Garris, one of the property owners, was in attendance at the Planning Commission meeting and let the commission know that it was a small shed that was on skids that could be pulled back. As it stands now, the shed with the new property line would be too close and would be violation of the zoning ordinance. So it has to be moved at least 7 feet from the property line and removed, and he said he would do that.
Okay. Okay, then. Do we have the applicant here or a applicant representative? If you would, please come forward. Okay. If you would identify yourself for the record, your name and address, sir?
I'm Jim Gary,
Okay.
422 Westlake Road.
Okay. Mr. Garris, what can you tell us about this?
Well, the MFA need to purchase it out their area.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of parking across the busy Westlake Road, it'll be a lot convenient when they purchase that, to park in there and then
Okay.
go right into the restaurant.
Okay, so they're creating a parking lot, and is that what the plan is then? Okay. Okay. If-
yes.
Okay, well, that's one of the options there. Sir, can you identify yourself for the
My
record?
name's Rob Warnicki. I'm
Okay.
with M Cafe.
Right,
And
okay.
We're looking to
Purchase the land
property
there,
for
okay.
future use, and
Okay,
that's one of the options, yeah.
okay, sounds good. Any questions from the board, comments? Okay, anybody from the public wishing to speak on regard to this matter? Okay, being none? Okay, anything else we need to know? Pretty much it, okay. Okay, I think we're all done there. Thank you. Okay, call for a motion on this.
I'll make a motion to approve this small subdivision plan.
Okay, do I hear a second? Do I hear a
I
second?
just want to point out, Mr.
Okay.
Waldinger, should we make the motion contingent on the requirements being met that you've noted
Yeah.
from the planning
Okay.
commission?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Make that
Figured it.
motion stipulating the requirements as previously stated.
Right.
Oh.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay. Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next item is a subdivision, small subdivision plan of Richard Lipchick, Charles Lipchick, and Shelley Wilmuth. a small subdivision plan to show the creation of 2 lots, parcel 1 being 31.3 acres and parcel 2 being 30.48 acres from tax parcel 154-487-28 located along the east line of Martin Road and the west line of Appleman Road, south of the intersection of Martin and Appleman Roads in tract 333. Mr. Waldinger.
Thank you. At the regular meeting of Tuesday, March 5th, 2019, the Millcreek Township Planning Commission recommended approval of this subdivision with the following requirement: that the correct owners on the adjacent properties be added to the Mylar. It's from talking with the surveyor, it was determined that this plat was prepared some time ago and not filed with the township until recently. Some of the adjacent property owners have changed in that time, so we'd like them to reflect the current ownership before the plan is
Okay,
recorded.
that's a condition on that, okay? Okay, is the applicant here or a representative for the applicant? If you would identify yourself for the record, sir?
My name is Richard Lipchick,
Okay.
354 Anderson Drive, Erie, PA.
Okay, okay. What can you tell us about this?
We would just like to divide this parcel into 62-acre parcel into 2 3-acre parcels.
Okay, okay. Any future plans, not that it really matters, any like constructing homes or anything there? Okay.
Not if somebody wants to buy it.
Okay, that's always the first thing, right? Okay. Okay, any questions or comments from the board? Okay, anybody in the audience here wishing to speak in regard to this matter? If you would come forward. Okay, being none? Okay, so we need, thank you, sir, appreciate it. Okay. Call for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve this small subdivision plan with the requirement noted.
Okay, for your second?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Our next item is Westminster Development LLC. It's a land development plan. Land development plan to show the construction of a 10,825 square foot office building with associated parking lot located along the east line of Pacific Avenue and south of West 38th Street in tract 76. Mr. Waldinger again.
Thank you. At their regular meeting of Tuesday, March 5th, 2019, the Millcreek Township Planning Commission recommended approval of this land development plan.
Okay, any conditions, just recommended approval, okay?
Correct.
Okay, questions or comments? Oh, I'm sorry, we need the applicant up here, I'm sorry. Is the applicant here or a representative?
Good evening, Mike Sanford, 4721 Atlantic Avenue. I'm the surveyor that prepared the plan.
Okay.
And it's just as you described, a land development plan for a small office building and parking area.
Okay. Okay, questions or comments from the board? Of course, that's an office, I believe. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Anybody here to speak from the audience in regard to this land development plan? Okay, being none, we'll let the record reflect that. Okay, I think we're all done. Thank you, sir. Okay, I'll call for a motion among the board here.
I'll make a motion to approve this land development plan from Westminster Development LLC.
Okay, do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, item number 11, ordinance 2019-5, an ordinance of Millcreek Township, Erie County, establishing an intermunicipal agreement with the Township of McCain and the McCain Township Sewer Authority for the provision of sewer services to certain limited properties within McCain Township by Millcreek Township. Mr. Shaw.
Yes, as part of the assumption of the assets of the Millcreek Township Sewer Authority, the township assumed an agreement that existed between the Millcreek Sewer Authority and the McCain Township and McCain Sewer Authority regarding service to McCain residents living along or living near the border between McCain and Millcreek Townships. The area we're talking about is along Grub Road and Bargain Road in McCain Township. As an authority, the Millcreek Sewer Authority could enter into such agreements outside the borders of the township without implicating PUC jurisdiction. However, municipalities that serve outside of their jurisdiction are subject to PUC jurisdiction unless their service does not constitute a public utility service. The purpose of this ordinance is to allow the parties to terminate the prior agreement and to allow Millcreek Township to enter into a new agreement with McCain Township and the McCain Township Sewer Authority that is structured to establish that Millcreek is not providing public utility service to the properties that are currently being served by the Millcreek sewer system. The agreement would make clear that Millcreek is not offering the public sewer service or is not offering public sewer service in McCain Township, and it limits service to the existing properties and would not allow further extensions of the existing sewer lines and would allow additional connections on the existing line only if connection would not trigger PUC jurisdiction. I would recommend approval of the ordinance and execution of the agreement when the ordinance becomes effective in 5 days. Both McCain Township and the McCain Township Sewer Authority have already signed the agreement.
Okay. Questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, I'll call for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution 2019 R19. We also approving the agreement.
It's an ordinance. It's ordinance
Ordinance.
2019-5.
Okay. Make a motion to approve ordinance 2019-5.
That's right. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, moving on to item number 12, that's the Millcreek-McCain Borders Area Sewer Agreement, which we just voted on there.
That you need to file a
approve
motion
that.
to approve execution of the agreement when the ordinance becomes effective.
Right, okay, so the ordinance, yep. So we will need to act on this here, so any information we need on this one, Mark?
No, essentially what I described
We
as
just did
the
that.
ordinance, I
That's what I
described
thought,
the
yeah.
agreement.
Just want to make sure. Item number 13, Resolution 29.
No, but you need to have a vote, though, on
Okay,
the...
I'm sorry.
On the
Okay.
agreement itself.
Okay.
I would recommend that there be a motion to approve the sewer agreements and authorize its execution once the ordinance 2019-5 becomes effective.
Once it becomes effective, okay, misunderstanding. Okay, do I hear a motion to approve that agreement?
I'll make that
Okay,
motion to
okay,
approve that
now we're on
agreement.
track. Do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Sorry. Okay, Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And so do I. Okay, now we're back on track. Yes. A little stumble there.
Getting late early.
Yes, almost my bedtime. Okay. Item number 13, Resolution 2019 R19, a resolution pursuant to Resolution 2015 R20 and the Municipal Records Manual to approve proposed disposition of certain township records. Mr. Zahaski.
Yes, we reviewed the list of items that are being held in off-site storage and determined which ones were beyond their administrative life, and those are listed as attached. And we are seeking approval to dispose of the records that are, in essence, at least 7 years old and some much, much older.
Okay.
And also the dash cams, because that is always there.
Right. Okay. Questions or comments from the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I just want to clarify that the dash cams are videos that reach their retention date
Yeah, retention
requirement.
period, yes.
Between March 26th and April 9th.
Yep. Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2019 R19.
Okay, do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And so do I. Okay. Let's see here. Item number 14, Resolution 2019 R20, a resolution to assess the costs of street lighting upon various properties abutting on streets in various subdivisions within Millcreek Township.
If I may, Mr.
Yeah, please, yeah.
This is a resolution that I think is done on an annual basis.
Right, I'm trying to...
Where the cost of street lighting is assessed against the various properties that benefit from it. There's a calculation and a method that is followed in accordance with our code. And this would make these assessments effective June 1 of 2019. And the assessments are to be filed then with the Millcreek tax collector and shall be payable and collected as provided in the code. So it's an annual
Right.
resolution that needs to be done to account for the streetlight assessments.
There we go, yes, okay. Yeah, I was still stuck in the destruction part. Okay. As Mr. Shaw indicated there, this is the annual resolution regarding assessments, what we do in regard to township operations of the streetlights. Any questions or comments from the board?
Mr. Chesky, you aware of any price spikes that residents should anticipate? And sometimes Panelec does have different kind of fees they can assess.
There were no major increases. The actual cost of the electricity went up a little bit, so there's a small increase on the cost per month per light, but nothing like that one year where the one schedule went from a negative number to a positive number. That was a shock.
Okay. Okay. Call for a motion on this resolution.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2019-R-20, the annual streetlight assessment.
Mayor, second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, next item is item number 15, which is a response to advanced disposal rate request, increased request. Do we have any further discussion on that, an action? Let me ask, first of all, ask the solicitor, do we have to take an action on this? This was in relative to their request for an increase.
Correct. They made the request. It was, they would like to have the request effective April 1 of 2019, and this would be our last meeting, obviously, before April 1. I would note that a representative from Advance reached out to me and indicated that if additional information was needed or requested, that he would be fine with tabling the action, but that's really up for the supervisors to decide whether they need additional information or not.
Okay. This would be a 24-cent increase per month, and this would be regarding recycling because of the cost for recycling.
Correct.
Okay. I'm not sure where my colleagues are at on this. Any discussion? Let's bring it up for discussion first. Okay.
Okay. I'm prepared to vote on their request as
Okay.
submitted, I believe it was 2 weeks ago.
Okay. Okay, so, okay, we
You
are.
want to keep us in suspense on what that vote's going to be?
Okay, let's call for a motion first on whatever that, and then we can vote on, or call for the motion and then have some discussion. Mr. Bach, you have something in mind.
So it'd be a motion for the rate increase?
To approve or reject?
Okay, I'll make a motion to reject their request for a rate increase.
Okay. Do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay. Okay, now that we have a motion on the floor to reject their request, we can have some discussion among us. Who wants to go first? What are your thoughts, Jim? Anything for the record?
My thoughts are that we entered into a contract with them. I don't know the exact date. I guess it was approximately 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago.
Okay.
That was the agreement entered into, and I believe that's the agreement that should be honored for the residents for the duration of this contract.
Okay. Mr. Morgan, do you have any thoughts, comments on it?
I agree with Mr. Bach. I don't think the request is unreasonable. I think they made a good case last week, but I think ultimately, when we put that contract out for bid, it was up to the bidders to project what their future costs might be, and when they offer to lock into a long-term contract, that is a risk that they take. So I agree with Jim with holding the rate steady at what the agreed-to amount was, but again, I don't believe the request was unreasonable, and I understand why they would ask for that kind of amendment.
Right. And in a rare opinion, I agree with both of you on that there. So, yeah, I know, check yourself for a pulse there. But yeah, in the sentiment that you guys both shared, I think, first of all, there's a contract. And yes, it's a minute amount, but still there's a contract on there, and business is business. And we expect our contracts to be upheld, and there's nothing in there that added a proviso for an increase or any sort of multiplier for inflation or anything like that. So with that said, call for a vote. Mr. Buck, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Okay.
Clarify,
That's a vote to
To hold rates the
reject,
same,
to
yeah.
hold the rates the same, to reject their request. Okay. Item number 16, agreement for the use of fuel stations at the Millcreek Township Building by the Volunteer Fire Services and Millcreek Paramedic Service. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure.
Okay.
As you may recall, the Millcreek Township Fire Commission made a recommendation to the supervisors to allow the fire departments in Millcreek to use the township fueling stations here at the township building. As a result, the township passed a resolution allowing the fire departments and MPS, the Millcreek Paramedic Service, to use its fueling stations under certain conditions, one of which was that the cost of fuel used by each would be taken from their LST monies, or if they do not get LST monies, the cost would be billed to the entity and paid on a monthly basis. The resolution also required the fire departments and MPS to agree in writing that the fuel used by the township is usable by the fire departments and MPS vehicles, and that they would agree to hold the township harmless for any damages caused to their vehicles by the fuel. And before you are agreements with MPS, Westridge, Westlake, and Lakeshore, which have been signed. I would note and include an agreement with Kearsarge, which I received via email at about 6:59. So I would add them to the list of agreements to be approved. Each have agreed that the fuel specified by the township is the type of fuel that can be used in their vehicles and equipment without causing damage to those vehicles or equipment. And each agrees also to hold the township harmless for any and all damages arising out of their use of the township's fuel in their vehicles or equipment, or for any claims that state or federal fuel taxes are due and payable as a result of the use by them of the township fueling stations. Each have also agreed to comply with all rules for using the township fuel stations as may be imposed by the township. The agreement allows the township to terminate it immediately if the agreement is breached, and either party may terminate on 30 days' notice. And it's my understanding through Mr. Snyder that the gasoline dispensers are nearly ready for use, and that the diesel dispensers will be available to be used shortly. They do have, I think, a fob-type system in place for each fire department and MPS to use to record what fuel they're using. It'll all be done, I believe, in a computerized system, so they'll be able to keep track of their fuel use and be able to bill them properly. I would recommend approval of these 5 agreements. I would also recommend that the Director of Public Works be directed to create the rules for usage of the fuel stations, which would include the payment provisions that I recited earlier with respect to LST monies and non-LST monies.
Okay. Okay, questions or comments from the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Shaw, do you need to vote on these as separate agreements, or can one motion address all 4?
I think one motion can address, frankly, all 5, because the agreements are identical. Kearsarge is added to that.
Okay. I'd make a motion to approve the fuel usage agreements with the fire stations and MPS.
Okay, do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay. Item number 17, Millcreek Golf and Learning Center Professional Golf Course Agreements. Mr. Shaw.
Yes. As you know, last year, the township, through the assistance of a grant from the state, undertook the reconstruction of the Millcreek Golf and Learning Center, which had been closed for some time due to the airport expansion. The reconstruction was completed midsummer, and the balance of the year was spent allowing the grass to grow so it can be playable. Township intends to have the Millcreek Golf and Learning Center operational again for this golf season. The township publicly advertised requests for proposals to operate and maintain the golf course, but no proposals were submitted. As a result, the township began discussions with several different parties regarding operating the Golf and Learning Center for this year. We have now narrowed those discussions to 2 people who will serve to essentially manage the maintenance and operations using seasonal township staff who will be hired. A budget has been prepared, and the overall expected cost of operating the golf course in 2019 is estimated to be $117,233, with the expected revenues to be $123,050. Of course, some funds will need to be expended before those revenues come in, and that was the reason for the capital budget amendment earlier this evening. There are 2 agreements that are being presented to the board for approval tonight. The first agreement is with Premier Turf Farms, which is owned by a gentleman named by the name of Dan Olson. Mr. Olson has experience with the golf course industry for many years. He oversaw the previous grow-ins at the Millcreek Golf and Learning Center, as well as other courses in our area. He comes highly recommended by several golf professionals throughout Erie County. He has worked in turf maintenance area for a number of years. He owns a sod farm. He performs maintenance at some golf courses within the area. He's also a PA licensed applicator for pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, and fertilizers, which will be important in maintaining the golf course. He performed well during the grow-in last season, and as such is familiar with the course, how it's growing in, and the irrigation system. And he also owns his own specialized equipment to help with the grow-in, as he used last year as well. Under this agreement, Premier is to be paid a total of $13,475, and they will provide the following services. They will oversee and manage the final grow-in of the course through June 1 of 2019, oversee and manage the maintenance of the turf at the golf course from June 1 through October, ensure winterization of the turf in October of 2019. They would do the various grow-in activities. They would assist the township in scheduling the maintenance staff necessary to be hired by the township. They would train that township staff on how to use and operate the equipment properly, and would assign daily tasks to the township maintenance staff and properly ensure the completion of those activities. The agreement begins on October 15 of 2019 and continues through the end of October 2019. And Mr. Olson understands that the township intends to open public play in the golf course no later than June 1, and will use his best efforts to have the golf course ready by that date, obviously weather permitting. The agreement does not contain material costs and does not include the day-to-day maintenance staff needed to maintain the golf course. These would be at the township's responsibility. Based on that, I would recommend approval of the agreement with Premier Turf Farms.
Okay, questions, comments from the board?
I just want to thank Mr. Shaw for all his work on this project. I know he's put a lot of hours in, so is actually Marsteller and then Mr.
Yes.
Groh. And I think we really do appreciate the extra effort you put in to try and really solve what was starting to become a problem for us in finding an operator and a maintenance team to maintain this golf course. I know Mr. Groh has advocated the idea of, is it possible to sell this property off to an operator? I don't disagree with Mr. Groh on that. However, we were unable, due to regulations related to the cleanup of the site, we're obligated to own it. So,
Right.
I think this was really the best possible solution, and appreciate your efforts and bringing it to fruition.
Hats off to you, Mark, and Ashley for the hard work that they did on this. There are a lot of talks with the different parties, and it's coming to fruition now, so thank you. I want to give you that there. So, any other comments from the board? If not, I will make the motion to approve this one. This is the agreement with Dan Olson for the maintenance of the golf course during the specified period that Mark had mentioned there. So I'll make that motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, next part.
The next agreement is with Jody O'Connor, doing business as Landing Greens Management. Mrs. O'Connor is the founder and director of LPGA USGA Girls Golf of Erie, which is the nonprofit whose purpose is to introduce the game of golf to young girls and teens Yeah, she has run numerous successful camps and programs through this organization since 2015. She's also been the golf shop merchandiser and junior golf instructor at the Coqua Club. She's an LPGA teaching and club professional. She was awarded the 2018 Women Making History from the City of Erie and received an honorable mention to the Top 50 Kids Teachers Award with U.S. Kids Golf. She's a former professional photographer with her own business and is proficient in web design and will be very helpful in marketing our golf course and ensuring that we get people to show up and play. Under the agreement, she will be paid $29,237 as an independent contractor. She will perform the following services for the township. She'll operate and manage the golf course and driving range, maintain the clubhouse, oversee the training, supervision, and scheduling and managing of staffing, assist the township in setting a fee structure, collect, manage, account, and deposit with the township all the use fees, clean, collect, and distribute the driving range golf balls, organize, advertise, and operate lessons, camp, clinics, golf tournaments, and other events, oversee the use of the golf course and the driving range by third parties, providing lessons and ensuring that the fees are properly paid, and then market the golf course through a website, social media, and other avenues. In addition, Mrs. O'Connor will be responsible for supplying any merchandise and concessions, as well as covering the expenses associated with those items, but she will also receive then the revenue from those items. She's also given the right to use the golf course for the specific leagues and events that had already been planned for girls golf at no additional cost. And in addition, to the extent she's able to do half-day camps and boys leagues that are modeled after what she has done with girls golf, she would be entitled to a 10% share of the net revenues after expenses of those ventures. The agreement would begin on April 1st, 2019, and would end on October 15, 2019. Her intent is to open the golf course or the driving range portion as soon as possible, given weather conditions and ground conditions, and she understands that June 1 is the target date for play. The agreement does not include the various materials and equipment that's needed to reopen the golf course. Those would remain the responsibility of the township and have been included in that budget. And as with the maintenance portion, township's going to be providing the seasonal staffing for the operation of the golf course, and the hours have been budgeted for that based on discussions that we've had with Mrs. O'Connor. And the township would remain responsible for the utilities and the overall maintenance of the golf course and buildings, all of which were included in that prior overall budget that I had mentioned earlier. Mrs. O'Connor is here if the board has any questions or if she'd like to maybe say a few words about what her plans are for the golf course.
Jody, why don't you come on up here and tell us what your plans are?
Thank you, Mark, and again, all that hard work that we've done to make it come together. I'm really confident. I know it's been a tough road with getting this together for the Millcreek Golf Course, but I have over 120 junior girls in my program, and I guess the plan is people keep asking, where is the boys program? So I'm looking forward to bringing those leagues, junior camps to Millcreek, as well as advertising the uniqueness of Millcreek, because it has 6 holes. So the biggest challenge for people to get on the golf course now is time. So we'll market 3 holes, 6 holes. I love the building. I think we can also hope to see some events in there, as well as bring ladies out for ladies on the range and other things like that. So yeah, any other questions? I'm really excited, and I thank you guys for your support.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, guys? Any questions?
All good?
Okay, thank you. We look forward to working with you.
Yeah, we appreciate you working with us.
Yes.
Consequently, I would recommend approval of the agreement with Jody O'Connor doing business as Landing Greens Management.
Okay. Okay. No further questions or comments? I'll tell you what, I'll make the motion on this one to approve that contract, or that agreement with Jody O'Connor, doing his business. And I need to hear a second on that. We'll hear a second.
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Buck, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. We have an agreement. Okay. Let's see here. Number 18, item number 18, that is PennDOT Agility Agreement. Mr. Waldinger or Mr. Waldinger? Or Mr. Snyder? Nobody? Okay. Nobody. I guess I'll take it. No problem. The agility agreement with PennDOT is an
Are your
agreement.
mic's broken? What's going on?
Yeah, it's okay, I'll take it. Agility agreement is something that is between municipalities and PennDOT. And what they do is swap work, switching back and forth. And it's an agreement that we're getting a new one here from, is it 3 years or 5 years that this one is going to be?
I think it's a 5-year.
5-year agreement. And so we need to, and this is an agreement where, like I said, we switch work with PennDOT. I think Gary Snyder might be able, not to put you on the spot, Gary, you can tell us a little bit about that. And I'm sure Matt might have some things to fill in there too, so, just so the public knows.
We met last week
Yeah.
with PennDOT.
Mm-hmm.
We had an agility program for quite a few years with them.
Yeah.
The trouble being is we kind of lost our way in how much we owe each other.
Okay.
Because there is that part of this agreement.
Okay,
And so we're starting out fresh.
okay,
PennDOT claims that they have a running total on this. So we'll find that out when we meet with
okay,
the manager
okay,
from the state. And we're hoping that we can work this out a little bit better than we have in the past.
okay. More documentation of
Right.
what's
That's
going
the big
on,
thing.
what we've done, what they've done. Okay,
Correct.
okay, that's
How
good.
much we charge for a piece of equipment. That was never done before.
Yes, okay, okay. Matt, do you have anything you want to add to that there?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay, okay, I'm just asking if you had anything. Okay, any comments or questions from the board? Big none?
Mr. Grau, I'll just add, these are pretty much form documents.
Yes.
There's not room for negotiation with PennDOT on
Right.
these.
Okay,
It's a routine agreement that municipalities can enter into with them.
Right.
PennDOT sets the value of their services.
Mm-hmm.
And again, there's no dollars exchange, it's a
Yeah.
service exchange, and Mr. Snyder commented, their calculations often favor the state in their value.
and we'll make sure ours favor us, okay? We'll boost them up a little bit higher there. Okay, call for a motion on this. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the agility agreement with PennDOT.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay,
I'm sorry,
There's the
Chairman
accompanying
Grow, there's also a resolution
Yes.
relating to this.
Right.
2019 R21,
Yes.
simply authorizing the signature for the agility agreement.
moving down, that's item number 19. Give me a second.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2019 R21, signature authorization for the agility agreement with PennDOT.
Do I hear a second on that?
I'll second that.
Okay, Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, moving on. Item number 20, stormwater maintenance plan and agreement request. This was tabled from the March 12th meeting for the Community Country Day School, and they are the developer. Mr. Waldinger?
Yes, thank you. Community Country Day School is doing an addition in parking lot paving. They were granted a land development exclusion because of the small size of the addition, but they still have to comply with our stormwater management requirements. The stormwater management plan was approved by Township Engineer Ann Sokol and Emma George in our office, and the Community Country Day School has provided the proper signatures on the document that were missing last week. It's properly signed and notarized, so I recommended that the board accept the agreement and approve the plan.
Okay. Questions, comments from the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve that agreement.
Okay, do I hear a second?
The motion is to approve the agreement and the stormwater maintenance plan.
Yes, let's amend it that way there, Jim.
Thank you, John.
I'll second that.
Okay. Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, item number 21 is a sidewalk deferral agreement for 6138 Grub Road. Mr. Waldinger.
Thank you. Yes, we were contacted by the developer, Richard Roskevich, for a home that's being built on Grub Road. He has requested a sidewalk deferral. This property is very close to the township line with McCain on Grub near Hershey. There are currently no sidewalks anywhere in the area, So it's recommended that we grant this deferral request at this time.
Okay. Of course, that's just a deferral. It doesn't mean they get exemption. It's just a deferral until other ones are built. Okay. Questions, comments? If none, we'll call for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the sidewalk deferral request for 6138 Grub Road.
Okay, do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, communications. Mr. Shahaski.
Yes, we received a advertisement, or I guess, or notice from the Knox Law Firm that they are going to be holding a municipal law symposium Tuesday, April 30th, from 1 to 5 p.m. at I believe it's the Ambassador Center here in town, actually Summit.
Okay.
And so we have traditionally sent people to this program. It does provide 2.0 credits for SHRM continuing education. There's some other kinds of continuing education requirements too, but SHRM is the one's more important for us. So what I'm doing is I would like to request permission for myself, Diane Lyons, our HR director, and Melanie Page, our assistant treasurer, along with the 3 supervisors, to attend the law symposium on Tuesday, April 30th.
There's no cost associated with that.
There is
correct?
no cost associated, just time off.
Take a motion
Okay.
to approve the training request.
Do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Anything else there, Mark? Okay.
That's it.
Mr. Morgan, do you have anything?
We have a request from Human Resource Office. Mr. Waldinger, do you want to cover this? Or do you have it?
I do have it here, yeah. Yes, there's a memo from Diane Lyons, Human Resources, to hire a new code enforcement officer. We conducted interviews a few weeks ago, and the recommendation, the unanimous recommendation of the group that was doing the interviews was that we hire Nicholas Bannister. He's coming with experience from Erie Insurance and Presque Isle Downs in facility security and emergent care as an EMT and field training officer. He's also been a volunteer with McCain Fire Department for 15 years and currently volunteers for the Millcreek Township Emergency Management Team. At the moment, he's currently completing his pre-employment screenings, but Diane recommends that we hire Nicholas Bannister for the position of Code Enforcement Officer at the rate of $40,000, or the salary of $40,000 a year. Date of hire would be April 1st, pending successful completion of all of his pre-employment screenings.
Okay.
I would just add that this would bring our code enforcement department back to full complement. So this is not
yes.
a new position. This is filling a vacant
Filling in,
position.
yes, that's right. Okay. Question, comments? Not, call for a motion.
I make a motion to approve the hiring of Nicholas Bannister as a code enforcement officer for $40,000 a year effective April 1st, 2019.
Okay. Do I hear a second on that?
I'll second that.
Okay, Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And so do I. Okay. You want to take the next one, or you want me to take it, since it's high HR?
Oh, well, it's Parks and Rec, right?
Yeah, Parks and Rec, yeah.
Yeah, feel free.
Okay. I have a request here from Ashley Marsteller, Director of Parks and Recreation Department. She would like to hire the following employees for the spring season 2019. The payroll for seasonal employees included in the department budget. 3 employees, Tom Hansen, Tim Smith, and Eric Noara, at the rates that they're listed here on this. Part-time maintenance for this spring season. I'll make that in the form of a motion to approve their hiring. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Okay, going back, Planning and Development Department.
I could do that one.
Okay,
Yeah, I've placed a request to hire a summer help position for the survey crew. We'd like to hire Kevin Hilling as summer help. Mr. Hilling is a civil engineering student at Teal College. His break begins May 1st and runs through August 24th. He hasn't given us his actual starting and ending date. It would be somewhere between those two dates. His rate would be $7.65 an hour, which is the standard rate for first-year seasonal employees. So I'd like permission to hire Mr. Hillen.
Okay. Is there a motion on that? We hear a motion?
Make a motion to approve the hiring of Kevin Hilling.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, we had executive sessions. I'm sorry, Don, do you have anything else there? I'm sorry, I didn't, if you had something else.
That's all
If
for me.
not, okay. We had executive sessions with our solicitor regarding land use and some other zoning matters on March the 14th and March the 21st. And that's all I have here. Jim Bach.
Okay, I have one request from Police Chief Scott Height. This is permission to register the Millcreek Township Municipal Building for the 17th National Take Back Initiative. It'll be held on Saturday, September 27th, 2019, from 10 to 2. Additionally, Wegmans on Wegmans stores have requested to partner with Millcreek Police this year in order to offer their stores as collection sites. Correspondence received from Wegmans Buffalo Division Manager, asset protection that overtime costs associated with their store's participation will be reimbursed. This is the drop-off drug program where people can bring in expired prescription drugs, et cetera, and drop them off here at the municipal building or at Wegmans West and Peach Street, I believe. This is in lieu of having a permanent receptacle here at the township building. We offer this twice a year, and it's been very successful. So this is to authorize use of the building where our officers will be present for security purposes here, as well as at the Wegmans locations as well. I would put that in the form of a motion.
Okay, do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes.
Mr. Chairman, I was
Yes.
mistaken. There is an item that I was supposed to bring up under communications. Matt Puz, zoning development officer, submitted these to Ms. Williams for inclusion on the agenda, I believe this afternoon. These would be referrals to the Planning Commission for rezoning requests. Is that correct, Mr. Waldinger?
Yes, it would only be for the first two, both Sessler, the Swans have withdrawn their request.
Okay.
So the first would be Robert W. Sessler for property located at 1647 West 4 Road, now zoned R1 Single Family Residential, and asking for the property to be classified to R2 Low Density Residential. That would be a referral to the Planning Commission for consideration.
Okay. And of course, this is, we'll make a motion on that, and we need that public comment. It's not on the agenda.
That's correct.
Okay. Do I hear a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Okay. Since this was not on the agenda, any public comment in regarding to this referral for a request of rezoning to the Planning Commission? Being none, we'll call for a vote. Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes.
The other, this is also Robert W. Sessler for portions of properties located at 4042 and 4058 West Ridge Road, now zone C2 General Commercial, and asking for approximately 4.01 acres of the property to be classified to R4 High Density Residential. Again, this would be a referral to the Planning Commission for consideration.
Okay. Do I hear a second on
I
that?
think
In the form of a motion. Yes, okay.
I'll second.
Okay. Since, again, this is not on the agenda, any public comment on this matter? Being none, we'll call for a vote. Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay. Okay, you're done with the MPD request. Next one
Yes.
is our student ambassador report. I'm sure you have a lot to say.
I'll
A lot
keep
of
this
good things
quick.
coming from McDowell. We like that.
As far as standardized testing goes, the next ACT test will be on April 13th, and the next SAT test will be May 4th. Just a quick note on extracurriculars at McDowell. The McDowell Speech and Debate team had great success at states. We had many students move past the preliminary rounds, as well as one student winning in their event, the Kirtan Patel and Lincoln Douglas debate. As a team, we took 5th overall, so I just wanted to extend a congratulations to that team.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's great news. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Shaw, anything?
I think I've spoken enough today.
Okay. Okay. Cheryl Williams, anything? Matt Waldinger?
Yes, I do have one additional item.
Okay.
At the regular meeting of March 12th, 2019, the board approved Resolution 2019-R15, which authorized and approved the construction of the Lester Lawndale Sanitary Sewer Extension Project.
Yes.
In order to comply with Sections 303 and 304 of Pennsylvania Act 247, which is better known as the Municipalities Planning Code, I'd like to ask that the board refer the proposed sanitary sewer extension to the Millcreek Township Planning Commission for their recommendation relative to the Millcreek Township Comprehensive Plan, and also to refer it to the Erie County Department of Planning and Community Development for their recommendation relative to the Erie County Comprehensive Plan.
Okay. So we need to have that referred over to the Planning Commission, that action.
Planning Commission and Erie County Planning.
Okay.
Yeah, in both instances, they simply review it and say whether it's consistent or not. Their decision is not binding on the supervisors in any way. So it's a process that has to be followed, but there's really no substantive impact from it.
Okay. Do I hear a motion? We will have to call for public comment on this. Do I hear a motion on that?
I'll make the motion to refer to the planning commission.
Okay. Do I hear a second on that?
I'll second that.
Okay. Now we'll open it. Any public comment in regards to this referral of the sewer line extension? Being none, call for a vote. Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes.
I'm sorry, just a point of clarification. Mr. Morgan, when you said planning commission, you included the county in that?
Yeah.
Of course I did.
Okay.
Both planning commissions.
Just wanted to make
Planning
it clear on the.
commissions,
Millcreek, yeah.
Yes, that's what Mr. Waldinger said.
I knew what you meant, John.
Okay. Okay, we ended at Matt Waldinger. Gary Snyder, you have anything else for us tonight? Okay, thank you. Okay, citizens to be heard. Any citizens to be heard? Okay. If you would, please state your name and your address for the record. The microphone may need to be pulled closer to her, sir. Okay.
Do you need to sign in too?
If you would, could you sign for her then,
Yeah.
please? Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Ma'am.
Okay, I am Connie Shu. I'm at 5107 West Street.
Yes.
Where I actually had my home built there 3 years ago.
Okay.
I moved here from Fairview, and one of the reasons I moved here from Fairview is I wanted better access to public transportation.
Mhm.
I am blind. I've used both the bus, the EMTA, and the lift service, and I continue to use them. I know the importance of them. For over 20 years, I worked and took the lift or the bus every day, and so I know how important it is. And I was really upset to see in the paper the low amount that Millcreek wants to give EMTA, because it is such an important thing
Okay.
to people like myself, and I know I'm not the only one in Millcreek.
Okay.
Anyway, so I'm urging the board to reconsider and
Okay.
give the increase, because it is such an important thing.
Mhm.
So that's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Okay. Sir, you'd like to add some comments too, if you would? Yes.
Please. My name is Dave Szymanowski. I'm a resident and homeowner here in Mill Creek at 823 Oregon Avenue. I too was upset when I read this in the paper. I look at it from a number of different angles. First of all, I don't think it matters if another jurisdiction pays or not. When we take care of our own bills or something that we want to add, we do it on the basis of our own values, not what's going on someplace else. So I think it's a faulty argument to say other jurisdictions. Now, having said that, wouldn't I love to have everyone, pay? Yeah. But I think the vote has to depend upon how we value things. Next, I look over at the financial benefits of this. The financial benefits are $200, $300, $400 to one for each dollar that Mill Creek puts in regard to the bus and to the lift, L-I-F-T, not to confuse it with the other lift. And so, I mean, the leverage that we get here in Millcreek for this service is outstanding. We'd love to have an investment of our own to get that kind of leverage. Third, I look at the economic and commercial benefits for us here in Millcreek. These benefits, we have businesses here and organizations that have employees and have customers and consumers of their particular services who do rely on the bus or the lift system. And I think as good citizenship, we should support that and not let it disappear or lessen because of paying a much lower amount. And I also go back to when I was newly married and we only had one car, and we would have to, one of us, take the bus service. And I'm sure people have no cars or one car and they want to use the service. Also, last year, almost about this time, my wife died a few years ago, so I only was down to one car. Unfortunately, it had some major problems. I waited 1 week, 2 weeks, almost 3 weeks, and I relied on other people, or I actually stayed home and got some work done. But then I was, getting ready to, okay, I wouldn't have my application in for the lift, but to go ahead and use the bus. So that's just another example of the various ways people use it. Now, okay, let me ask you this. Do any of you know why the snowplow asked for a raise? Because it was just scraping by. Do we want to have Millcreek just scrape by? Or do we want to go with grace and dignity and pay what was requested and not that 1/15th amount? Thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments, and that was a good joke there, too. I appreciate good jokes there. That was a good one. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in regard, or anything on citizens to be heard? Would you come forward, please? And if you would like, right here at the end of the table, and there's a handheld microphone, or whatever you would like to use there. And if somebody could write down the young lady's name for the record.
My name is Amy Chikaki. I am a resident of Millcreek Township. I actually live right on the border between West Grandview and Lecom, the college.
Okay.
And I think it is important to piggyback on what they said about the allocating money that you guys are deciding for the EMTA lift. Not only am I a Millcreek Township resident, I work for Voices for Independence, and I'm the liaison for Voices for Independence. And this affects for our center, for if services are cut to the bus lines or the lift, will affect consumers' attendance, and it'll affect the ability for our consumers to get their services from whatever they may need. And I'm asking you guys to please think about us. Like, I use the lift every morning and every night to go back and forth to work. Am I going to have to cross the street into Erie City to board my lift bus every morning? Or am I going to be able to be picked up at my residence where I live so that I can go to work? Or am I going to have to find alternative transportation for someone to drive me to work? So I'm asking you to please think about those people with disabilities that I'm representing today, that don't have the authority or don't have a way to speak up for themselves. Thank you.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
comments.
Thank you.
Okay. Matt, you did, okay. Okay. Yes. Okay, thank you for your comments, miss. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Citizens to be heard. Okay. Mr. Peterson, please come forward.
Good evening, supervisors and Board of Millcreek. I wanted to first start off by saying thank you for everything you do. As a Millcreek resident myself, I understand some of the issues that you face with on a daily basis. I appreciate the cleanliness and the hard work that everyone here puts in to the township. With that being said, I'm also the Executive Director of the Erie Metropolitan Transit Authority. As you've heard from some of the citizens and customers of ours, this is a very important measure that we need to take, and the folks that use our service are not only the citizens of Millcreek, but they're also part of economic development. They're part of the economic boost to the township. We have employers that depend on this service. We have folks that have disabilities that also depend on this service. We hope that the supervisors can sort of reopen this issue again and rethink their decision. We have state parks that are also serviced by EMTA and folks from Millcreek and the outliers of Millcreek that come in to visit our community. We also believe that it's very important that they have a vehicle that they might not necessarily have to actually use our service as the vehicle to get them to come here and visit the township for whether work or pleasure. So please help me and these folks here, along with our board members, to move forward. And with that being said, we want to become more of a very transparent company to not only Millcreek Township, but everyone. We want to become more of a regional asset. For that to happen, we need to move forward. We need to be more proactive. And we also, as I said, need to be more visual and transparent as a company. I'm more than happy to open up the discussions with you currently and future. Please don't have past administrations. I hope that don't hold that against us. We just want to move forward as an authority and a public asset. With that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Okay, I'll go to the gentleman as he's coming this way. If you hold on, Gary, for a second, please. Sorry there. Sir, if you would state your name for the record and the address too, if you just sign it on the sheet there, if you would. Thank you.
My name is Ben Wilson.
Mhm.
I live at, do you want me to?
If you just write it down there, that'd be good, yes.
I am a Millcreek resident.
Mhm.
I'm also a board member for EMTA.
Okay.
One of the reasons why I wanted to become a board member is because Millcreek was really instrumental in my success. Because I took the bus from the city as a young man to participate in activities in Millcreek. And I credit the bus system for that opportunity. For someone who came from a very disadvantaged home, didn't have a lot of things going for me growing up in the city, single parent home, but being able to participate in things that I enjoyed that were out here in Millcreek. And so that was one of the reasons why I really wanted to be on the board. And one of the reasons why I wanted to, I'm not necessarily, or I'm not representing Millcreek as far as a board position, but I live out here, so I'm a voice for Millcreek. And so I really think it's really important to just reconsider some of the things that's been, you know, said here, and I'm coming at you from a person that really benefited from the service, from a young man to where I'm at now. So, and I contribute a lot of my success, excuse me, to the bus system and Millcreek as well. So I just wanted to come up and say a few words, and I appreciate your time for listening.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Bear, are you ready to come up?
It's been a while, Gary.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
Yes, where you been?
Kept your chair warm for you, though.
Yeah, okay.
My name is Gary Bear, 4045 Finder Drive. I've lived in Millcreek all my life as well. I've taken the bus, but I'm a little bit confused. Normal, but I did not think that this question of fairness of allocation of cost was going to mean that we were saying reduce the services, or that anyone was saying reduce the services. I didn't think that anyone was going to take back from anyone who needed to lift. It was just a discussion on cost allocation. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So-
It's unfortunate, just to clarify, the contribution that Millcreek makes or had made in the past, and this is based on the most current budget information that EMTA has posted on their website from 2017. The $20,000 contribution that was being made was 0.12% of their budget. So I don't anticipate service being reduced in Millcreek, and the operating subsidy that was provided, it doesn't go towards lift services, so that funding is a separate pot of funding that the EMT operates off of.
Yes,
So
I
lift
thought this
service shouldn't be
discussion-
affected at all by our lack of, or reduction in contribution. And even counting the matching funds that are associated local match, at least by the numbers I'm looking at here, that even those matching funds come out to 1.2% of the EMT's operating budget. So I don't believe Mr. Peterson is suggesting he's going to cut service to Millcreek because of a $17,000 reduction in contribution.
I always thought that this thing got swayed a different way than what it was discussed, at least what I thought was being discussed. And I'm glad to hear that, because I didn't take it as a reduction in services, and we were going to harm individuals in our township. But that's not Millcreek Township. I think we need to put that out, and I think it should be in the TV and newscast as well, that that's not the intent here.
I think that the Times News is present, so I hope Val's recording that.
So I encourage them to extend that, make that lift even greater, and help those that need it even more so, but not just make this a discussion about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, sir, I will, yeah.
Well, let's just see if someone else wants to talk.
Yeah, I think the gentleman
You can certainly
behind
come back
Gary.
up, but let's make sure everyone gets a chance first.
Yes, this gentleman right here. I'm sorry, I can't recall your name. I know you've come here quite often. I'm sorry.
Dennis McCann.
Yes, okay, thank you.
I'll put my address down.
Yeah.
I've been attending several of these meetings for quite a while now.
Oh, yeah.
And at least my perception of it is that you guys are trying to do your due diligence, pay, not be taken advantage of. I think that Erie County, in a power grab or power struggle with the mayor, and you guys got caught in a crossfire, and them saying, hey, we're gonna take over, we're gonna do everything, don't worry. And then when someone says, fine, you take care of it, pay for it, then they go, well, give us money. Well, okay, where's representation, where's it fair? I'm gonna do everything, but I want you to pay. I don't, from what I've noticed from you guys, as an observer, I don't use the lift, but the contribution's not, it's the unequity or the power grab. It seems like there's more of a unfairness that no one seems to be wanting addressing. If Millcreek's expected to pay more than everyone else, then we should be represented better. And I don't think everyone is saying we don't want to contribute, we just want it to be consistent. And for years and years, well, we've always done it that way. well, then let's go back to horse and buggies. We did those for years, but we're not running back to that. So let's get with the times and let's be equal about it. I think the EMTA needs to get, if they want the money, justify it. And I think that's what you guys have been trying to tell them, but yet no one seems to have any numbers. They're just pulling numbers out of the sky. And that's at least my perception.
Thank you, Dennis. I think the one clarification I do want to make, that there was a very public dispute between the city and the county regarding board control and local match, and that did occur, but that really, that's what I want to clarify, that's not really tied to what this issue is currently. What we've been discussing.
It seems like you guys have got caught in the crossfire.
Well, there was some discussion at the time. The county executive was very vocal in her intention of the county covering all local match for all municipalities at that time, with the request that the county assume full control of the board and charter. And when the county did not receive full control of the board and charter, that offer was pulled off the table.
Like I said, I don't know all the people, they're just saying, it seems like you're trying to do the due diligence.
Yeah, but
no one wants to harm anyone. It's just you want it fair and consistent.
Yeah, our bigger contention is that if municipalities are going to be requested to make contributions, every municipality receives a certain level of service should make contributions, and currently only 5 municipalities outside the city of Erie make any contributions or asked to make contributions. So that's the point we're
trying to make. Yeah,
absolutely.
And I think everyone in their blitz or hurry to have their 30-second soundbite has forgotten the intent.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, sir, in the burgundy sweater. I'm sorry.
Oh, wait, actually, the gentleman in the back hasn't had a chance yet.
Okay.
Again, my name is Dave Szymanowski. I just want to make a point of clarification to my understanding that, yes, the lift service monies are, a separate pot of money. However, to my understanding, the bus routes are connected to where the lift system could go. So say it's whatever municipality it would be that services were cut back, it is very likely then some portion of those individual residents would not be able to take the lift because that bus no longer goes down that particular route. Now, I don't know how many yards or whatever, but I just wanted to make that point that there is
there's a buffer, I believe.
Yeah, there's a buffer in there, a buffer zone.
Mr. Peterson, is that a 1 mile buffer for lift service, or is it a 2 mile buffer for lift service around an existing 3/4 mile?
Okay, Mr. Robertson, the floor is yours now. Sorry about that. Okay.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. My name is Dave Robinson. I'm not a Millcreek resident. I live at 10175 Dietzel Road in Union City. I currently serve as the chair of the new reconstituted EMTA board. And I'm really glad to have the opportunity tonight because I want to dispel some of the fears, legitimate fears that I'm hearing from some of our riders. The funding system for EMTA is, as you know, complex and interconnected. Although LIFT funds have separate sources of funding, 1/3 of their funding comes directly from our operating budget at EMTA. In addition to that, in order to have the shared ride lift opportunity, a resident needs to live within 3/4 of a mile of one of our fixed routes. So the very fact that the lift is available is based on the fact that we have fixed routes there. When you cut back, and we're not saying that we want to cut back, you lose that. So I just want to put that out there. I'm really hoping that you heard some of the legitimate concerns of some of the folks who use the lift and depend on it tonight. I'm the first one to admit that the relationship between the MTA and our users in the municipalities has not been one that we're proud of. As we move forward with this new board, and a young, good staff, we're committed to changing some of the past irregularities that we've discovered and that we want to move forward and change. Number one of which is the local match issue. I can't tell you how those local matches were derived originally, but when you look at the numbers today, Millcreek is accessing 56% of the local outside the city service. And they access 54% of the service, and you're paying 56% of the match. What I would like you to consider, I understand the hesitation to offer an increase when you've got a legitimate concern about other municipalities that aren't paying what they could and should. What we are asking you tonight is to reopen your discussion, to accept our offer of a cut of 2% instead of an increase of 2%, which would put Millcreek's contribution in line with its ridership. It would also set a benchmark that's objective based on numbers that we can then take to other municipalities throughout the county to ask for their local match to meet their needs versus their portion of the overall. Millcreek is critical because outside the city of Erie, you are our largest and most important community. You can't consider yourselves on an equal basis with my hometown of Union City or of Albion or of Northeast or any of these other towns, some of which receive service. However, it's indisputable that the complex and extensive service that's provided to Millcreek residents is certainly of value both to those residents as well as your employers, as well as the many schools that operated in this community, as well as those who, for whatever reason, have to ride a bus. They don't own a car, or they're working toward that. Your contribution in the local match is matched 12 times by the state, which means that the $20,000 contribution that you had been making is actually worth $240,000 in the system. Gentlemen, we're facing a lot of real external threats to the viability of public transportation in Pennsylvania and in other parts of the country. We don't need to complicate that with parochial infighting over percentages. I agree that you should be paying at the same rate that you're using. Moving forward, I give you our commitment officially from our board that we will move immediately to implement that formula with all the other districts. I can't guarantee they're going to pay it tomorrow, but we can at least begin that dialogue with them. I hope you see your way to change of heart and a different decision, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on anything, this or any other matter? Okay. Well, being none, are there any comments among the board in reference to this? Anything?
I just want to clarify, and I appreciate Mr. Robinson's clarification as well, to our residents who attended who are concerned about service being cut. That is not the intention of EMTA to cut service, and the contribution, regardless of the contribution of Millcreek Township, it's not of a significant nature that would impact service. So I just want to ease those concerns to our residents.
Okay. Jim, do you have anything?
No, sir.
Okay. Well, leave it to me to have a comment or two. I received a call after our vote, not the same night, but the next day, from an elected official from a municipality in Southern Erie County who I respect a lot and look to him for wisdom and guidance. And he asked me what we were doing. He says, "What are you doing?" And it kind of woke me up and let me think about some things, and talked about the importance of the EMTA, what it provides for people. It made me also think about a couple things, and of course I know we can play a number of games with what pot pays for what. I recall my late father, who died 10 years ago, his last 3 years of life he spent in a wheelchair, in a motorized wheelchair, because of a stroke that he had. And he required the lift to take him places. It was hard, it was challenging to put him in a car, to lift him out. Then what do we do with his wheelchair? So I know that challenge of that there. So I do empathize and understand with people that have mobility problems and what they have to go through. He was able to go to appointments, he was able to go have pleasure, leisure, whatever, but he was also able to go to doctor appointments. And I think of a couple years ago in the summertime, and I love 8th grade Tuesdays, I'm looking forward to it. Anything outside is great for me. But I had an operation which I was not able to ride my motorcycle down to 8th grade Tuesdays. That's one of my things I really love. And I couldn't do that, so you park at a parking lot, and we used the Green Garden parking lot, and then took the shuttle down there. And most of the time it was a trolley car. You know, it was fun. In and out real quick. It's a great system that they have. So I benefited from that myself. And I think of other people. I've been up to the mall over the weekend, and you know, just now I'm more aware of what's going on with the buses. It's like, wow, we're bringing commerce here. And yeah, that's good for us. I do have a little problem with employees having to use the bus a lot, because I wish that the jobs paid more. That's a problem that we have. I wish jobs paid more, that these people could afford a car. You know, and that's just my own view on it. So, and that's not to be picking on businesses. I don't want anybody calling me up and saying, why are you picking on businesses? Myself, I am willing to look at this. I don't know how my colleagues are. Of course, we're not going to vote on anything, but to reopen the discussion in regards to this matter. I know I voted yes on this, and I will tell you there was a formula used, and I agree with that formula. There has to be a formula determined of how not only Millcreek, but how everybody else is going to help with EMTA. When I look at the cost at $20,000 and look at our population based on the last census, 37 cents per resident is our contribution. 20,000?
That on top of what our residents pay through county taxes with the county
Right.
contribution.
Correct. And there's a multitude of other taxes that are paid. I'm talking about the $20,000 contribution that we had done in the past. What I'm going to suggest, and if we can get to some dialogue, and I'm hoping that somehow that can happen with the MTA board, come up with a formula. And if anybody will try to rally the municipalities that are not kicking in some money, I would be the first to go out and knock on their door saying, hey, we gave some money, why don't you? And that will be my commitment to it. But I do think that personally we need to open the dialogue and discussion again. By no means would we trying to be mean-spirited. I think one thing about it, we have a discussion going, and from discussions we can do some good things. And I know there may have been some problems in previous, with the EMTA board and boards of supervisors. We have to let those things go and work on what we can do from this point on. And I think now is an opportunity, and I mean a serious opportunity for us to work on something and move ahead. So that's just my comment. I don't know how my colleagues are about it. If, somehow we'll see about this, maybe discuss it tomorrow, and see what we want to do. And if there is a possibility of reopening the discussion, we will be reaching out to you folks at EMTA. So that's all I have. I don't want to bore us anymore. It's almost 9 o'clock here. So is there anyone else that would like to speak on this or any other matter coming before the township? Sir? Oh, yes. Mr. DiMatteo, how are you?
Oh, he's trouble. Don't let him talk.
No, we ought to let him talk. We like him.
He's trouble. He's trying to
He's a
put
good guy.
sculptures on water and stuff. What are you doing, man?
Go ahead. Please identify yourself. We know who you are.
John DeMarco. I'm a resident of Millcreek, 2579 South Tracy Drive. I just want to say that I appreciate you taking the opportunity to revisit this with your colleagues.
Mhm.
And just as a resident of Mill Creek, I think what the first gentleman said, go back to our values and really what is important. I think there's a great opportunity now, as you said, with this newly formed EMTA board, and a great opportunity to show the citizens of Erie that we can work through things and we can make things happen for the betterment of everybody. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Marco.
Thanks, John.
Okay. Is there anyone else?
Hey, John, can we get that sculpture on Presque Isle next year?
I'm going to shoot for it. I'm
I'm
going to try
saying
for
this
it.
whole, if it's Presque Isle, you got to keep it on Presque Isle,
I
man.
know,
Don't
at the
put it-
snow day.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay. Being no other action before the board, call for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay, and it's at 9 o'clock. Thank you.